Evening, everybody. If you can put in the chat for me, hello, how are you? Where are you from? That would be good. If everyone can do that, that would be really nice. I thought what our objective is this evening is to discuss, to start off by talking about getting ready for the driving test. The whole idea is to go through various aspects of getting ready and how to get ready for the driving test. So where the problem often comes is that there are a lot of misnomers about what's going on the actual driving test. And I think one of the most important things that I can say from my experience of having done this since 2006 and numerous students that have passed their test, all I can say to people who are learning and preparing for the test, your preparation for the test is really, really important in the sense that it's not about just being able to drive the car. Often people will say to you, well, I can drive. It's not about being able to drive. It's being able to convince the driving examiner that you are able to do the things that he requires. What we've done is to help you with that tuition process. We've got a website. This is our website, and it is free for anybody who has signed up with us. All you have to do is you will probably be automatically sent from our client managers. If not, you can ask the client manager to sign you up for this advanced professional driving tutorials. These tutorials are not theory test tutorials. They were not designed for the theory test. This tutorial was designed so that you can prepare yourself for the driving test. And it's to help you sort out the process of getting yourself ready and what are the important points for the driving test. So we prepared this website. This is a website which has a membership fee to it. If you're one of our clients already, you can request to get access to the website and the videos in the background. And that is free of charge if you've already got one, if you've already signed up for our services. However, if you want to come from the outside, there is a charge to that. Okay. What I would like for you to understand about this, which is really, really important, the driving instructors give you briefings in the car. Those briefings are sometimes difficult to remember and don't cover all the topics because they don't have all the time to cover the topics which prepare you for the actual driving test. And our idea with this specific website and the materials that are available there in video form is for you to get more information about what is needed when you're going to be doing your driving test and a better understanding of what you need for your driving test. I've done tons and tons of lessons with students, people who've had driving licenses before, come from different countries and all those sort of things. And the quickest way to learn how to deal with roundabouts is to first do the video material that's there on the roundabouts, the different classification of roundabouts, the roundabouts, the mini roundabouts, how to deal with them, shielding on mini roundabouts, all those sort of things. Then open roundabouts, what the rules are that govern open roundabouts, and then obviously closed roundabouts and also spiral roundabouts. You will, in your driving process in the UK, actually experience all of these roundabouts. And you might not even have gone through a specific process at a driving with your driving instructor in a center. But if you are able to recognize what you're dealing with because you've done some background, then that can be really, really useful for you. So please do not pass up the opportunity to prepare yourself for your driving test by studying, having the opportunity to study these videos. Now the question is, what is this going to do? Well, if you study these videos, the beauty about studying these videos is it will reduce the number of hours of tuition that you need. So if you know that normally the normal driving schools will spend anything from 20 minutes to half an hour going through tutorials with you on a 1 or 2 hour lesson. Well, all of that can be avoided, which means it gives you extra time in the car, a 30% better time in the car, because you know immediately what you need to know for the driving test. That's why this is so very, very important. So this website is bdslonline.com. BDSL, where the L is for London, Best Driving School London online.com. bdslonline.com. And if you've signed up for a TBO, a fast track driving test, or anything like that, you have access to this. All you have to do is put a question or an inquiry through to one of your client managers. Okay, all right, guys. So that's the bdslonline.com, and hopefully you're all aware of the potential tutorial material that's available for you to prepare you for your driving test. This is out there so that we can help you get ready for your practical driving test. And as I said before, the intention is not for this to be available, or, well, you can study the roundabouts and those sort of things. There is material in there that might be useful for the theory test, but that was not the intention and is not the intention of the videos that are on there. They are on there for the purpose of reducing the amount of time that you spend sitting next to the road, not driving, because somebody needs to go over tutorial material with you. So if an instructor says to you, what do you know about roundabouts? You can say, look, I've studied them. I know what's going on. Let's get on with it. And you don't have to sit there for half an hour listening to an instructor who is trying to teach you this. And the beauty about this is repetitive. You can go back, you can study it, you can come back. And if you've got any questions or any queries about that, please get back to us. Give us feedback on it. If there's anything you think we should make clearer or we have to review, we do all of this work ourselves to help you get ready for your driving test. And the next thing I want to talk about, which is also important, is when you're preparing for the test, we have a facility, or you guys are all aware of the fact that we have a facility to find driving test cancellations or earlier tests. But I'm not sure that everybody is also available. That we have a system which we call a standby driving test booking service. So what the standby driving test booking service is, you get ready for your test. You then sign up for standby driving test service, for the standby driving test booking service. You sign up for that. And that means that you're on a very short notice, because a lot of tests are cancelled basically on the last day to cancel before the test, which is 3 working days before the test. And if a test is cancelled on that day, it's rather difficult to find somebody to do that driving test. But if you and your instructor is on the standby driving test booking service, then we will check with you and your instructor to see if you can take that test. And that's normally very short notice, which means you have to be basically ready to take your test. That is an option. That is something that's available. The other is just the cancellation finder app that we've got in the normal driving test bookings that we use. And obviously that is so that you can also get ready. But again, I would go back and say to you that the most important thing about these things, getting this, is get ready for that test in a way that you know what's going to happen. Now, when you're getting ready for the test, the question that people often ask me is, how do I know I am ready for a driving test? This can really be answered in an easy way. If you have a good instructor and he's falling asleep next to you, you're pretty much ready for your test. So that's one way of measuring it, but hopefully that's not the way you measure it. The way that you should really measure it is you should do a mock driving test. And when you do a mock driving test, the driving instructor should divide your driving process or your driving evaluation process into a 3-way system, because when you do the driving test proper, you are only allowed to have either no more than 15 minors and no serious faults and no dangerous faults. In my book, there are 3 types of faults. The first type is obviously a minor fault. You might have forgotten to signal, or you might have forgotten your signal on, or you might have not looked in the mirrors appropriately, or you might have missed a shoulder check. These are normally considered minor faults as long as you don't endanger anybody else. If you endanger anybody else because you missed a mirror check, that could be considered as a serious or dangerous fault. So you have minor faults, which are these types of faults that don't have serious consequences and are not, if you repeat in a specific category like a mirror check, the same fault 4 times, then the examiner can end up in a situation where he simply says you are not driving and using your mirrors correctly, even if you didn't endanger anybody in the process. Then you have serious faults, so obviously that can become a serious fault. A serious fault is overshooting a line at a traffic light, racing through the amber light, and racing even faster on the red light instead of stopping for those. Not seeing somebody approaching a pedestrian crossing can be regarded as a serious fault. There's various serious faults. Dangerous faults are normally when the examiner has to intervene and stop you, either by verbally, or he jumps on the brake pedals on his side of the car. Or he has to lean over and steer you away from running over somebody or crashing into something. Those are serious faults. But then there's one other category, and I call it a judgment call. And a judgment call is something that lies between a serious fault and something that lies between a minor fault. The moment you go into the category of serious and dangerous, that's just a fault that's going to stop you. That's not going to let you get your driving test. So you've also got these things which are called judgment calls. Now, I had a really interesting thing on a mock test the other day. We were driving along and there was a central reserve area on the zebra crossing. So the zebra crossing was divided into 2 separate zebra crossings by an island in the center. And as we approached the zebra crossing on our side with the car, the student could see that there was a mother and kids on the other side of the zebra crossing coming towards them. And what happened was they were about halfway across, and he carried on across his side of the zebra crossing. Now, in my book, I know from my experience that's a judgment call, because the examiner can take the perfectly legal position by saying that that was not a fault because they were not on the island waiting to cross. But I also know, because there were children involved and a parent with 2 children involved, because they were more than halfway, they were approaching to use the crossing on his side. And a lot of examiners will take that as a serious fault. So that's where there's a judgment call. And quite honestly, you cannot afford judgment calls, because if you make 2 judgment calls in sequence, the examiner will change them to serious faults and knock you out of the test. So don't make that mistake. That's a mock test. So if you want to know if you're ready for the test, you do mock test. And the way to do it is to discuss this with your instructor. You just do a mock test. You drive. When you make minor faults, he corrects them in the drive, doesn't pull you over for minor faults, discusses them with you while you're driving, because you need to be able to drive when somebody is talking to you. But if you make a serious or dangerous fault, then he pulls you over and he terminates the test. And you need to be able to get through that mock test with at least an hour's driving without making a serious fault. If you can do that, you are ready for your test. That's a really good way of seeing if you are ready for your test. If you're making a serious or dangerous fault every 15 or 20 minutes, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to pass your test, because what will happen is when you go out for the test on the test day, you're going to be nervous. You've got a strange person next to you in the car. All your nerves are heightened, and it's more likely you'll make a mistake than when you're not. The other fault that I find a lot of people do, I say to everybody, drive as much as you can. But there's a but. Drive as much as you can while you're preparing for the test. If drive with your brother, drive with your auntie, drive with whoever will let you drive their car as a learner with the right insurance. The biggest problem you've got there is if you don't follow the rules you need to follow when you're in the driving test. Don't think you can stop checking your mirrors the way you should for a driving test. Drive like that with a whole lot of experience, and then you think, I'm going to get into the driving test. When I'm in the driving test, I'll check my mirrors. Forget it. You won't do it because the nerves will just let you forget it. It's got to be a habit. You've got to develop these things which prepare you for the test so that they become habitual. You do them exactly the way that you should do them for the test when you're driving privately. And that's normally the problem when you get private tuition, is the parents, the mom, the uncle, whoever it is who's taking you out, is not sitting there thinking about preparing you for the driving test. They are thinking you are getting experience. You're not getting experience using the procedures. That's not going to help. So mock test we've spoken about. And my last thing here, and then we'll open the floor for anybody who's got questions or wants to discuss something or has picked up any faults I've made. Obviously, I'm not perfect, nearly perfect, but not quite perfect. Anyway, so the last thing here is the examiner is not an instructor. A lot of people make this mistake. They come, and I've seen this so many times. They come to me and they say, look, I've had 3 tests already. I know where my mistakes are. Biggest mistake you can make. Because the examiner's responsibility, he just has to get you back to the driving test center safely. Once he's got your 2 faults, or your serious and dangerous fault, or once you've bummed the test, once you've got to that stage, he doesn't need to mark your paper anymore. Because the other side is that the DVSA is also saying to that driving examiner, don't beat these people up too much because that's not being nice to them. It's not his job to tell you what all your faults are. So you might do a driving test and think, oh, well, I only got 2 serious faults and 6 minors or 8 minors. And then you do another one and then you get the same and it's a different category. And then you do another one and it's a different category. You're not ready for the driving test in the first place. So you've got to make sure that you understand that that examiner only needs to fail you. Once you failed, that's the end of the story. He can sit back, make sure he gets you back to the driving test center safely, making sure you don't make any major serious mistakes where he's got to intervene, and that's the job done for him. He doesn't need to sit there and mark the paper. There's nothing that says that he's got to pick up on every single fault you make. Once he's done his job, once he's knocked you out of the ballpark, that's a job done over. That's the end of it. And then you think, oh, I'm looking at this. Yes, you can analyze the faults you've made on your piece of paper that you get or the report you get by email. Yes, those are good indicators of faults you're making. But don't think those are the only faults you're making, or don't think that that's now a really good guide of whether you're ready for the driving test. A mock test is the best way to find out if you're ready for a driving test. Okay, that's my job done.
I have a question. It was
sure.
Asked by Angel.
Okay.
Okay, so she said, hello, I have a question. I failed my driving test previously. The serious fault was that it was green light on signal, but someone was almost trying to cross the road so slowly, slowed down, due to which my examiner intervened and I failed. So it seems as if Angel anticipated that the person was going to cross the road and slow down, and the examiner intervened. But maybe Angel, I don't know if you can ask Angel to explain.
Yeah, Angel, if she can put up her hand. Angel, if you can just, Angel, you can chat. Angel Thomas, you're good. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your session. It's just that I failed previously. It was just like I did my test in West Wickham, and it was a green light. And of course, I was supposed to go through, but there was someone just almost trying to cross. So instead of making like a serious fault, I tried to slow down a little bit, but then my examiner just intervened. He said, it's green light. Can we just go straight? So I mean, that was one thing that he failed me for.
Okay, so let me explain what that is. So from what I understand there, it was hesitancy. So if anybody is standing next to the road and you have a green light, if you at that stage stop for no reason other than to let them cross, then it becomes a hesitancy fault and you're obstructing traffic. Obviously, if this person runs out in front of you, you've got to hit the brakes and not go over the top of them, and you don't have the right to go over them. But if you are hesitant and not moving, you are, first of all, you didn't stop dead. That's a problem. And you didn't move consistently away. You must move and get on with it so that that person doesn't think they can cross because you have a green light. You see, what a lot of people do is, I'm teaching somebody at the moment, and there's hesitancy in their driving. So in other words, instead of seeing, okay, it's my opportunity, it's my right of way, I must go, they keep on wanting to stop for junctions. Well, you don't do that, because the moment you stop for junctions or you slow down, an experienced driver will drive out in front of you. And then an accident can happen because you're being hesitant. You must be very clear about your actions. The way you drive your car must be in a way that it's clear, it's positive. It's my right of way, I'm going. Obviously, if they run out in front of you, you're going to stop and you're aware of them. But don't make them aware of it, that you are hesitant. Does that make sense? That's what happened, Angel.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, is there anybody else who's got a question? Is anyone else got something that they want to discuss?
Yes. Blessing Smith says, I have a question. I got really nervous when changing gears on dual carriageway roundabouts. Is there any way to properly prepare, anticipate when on dual carriageways and roundabouts?
Okay, one of the things that is a really good rule to follow is the first thing, and this is a trick one of my students taught me. The first thing you've got to remember is there's no high speed limit on a roundabout. And invariably, people make themselves very nervous by driving too fast around roundabouts. So the best thing to do is when you approach a roundabout is to get into second gear as soon as possible. And then just stay in second gear on the roundabout. So the first thing is, as you approach the roundabout, gear down into second gear if you're doing a manual. Most cars, second gear will be the right speed. You gear down into second gear. Once you've geared down into second gear, you can then go into the roundabout and you just keep it slow and keep it at a speed where you can control your car's position on the roundabout. And then once you've checked your mirrors, signaled out and left the roundabout, change your gear to third or whatever. But don't fiddle up and down gears on a roundabout. Normally, if you've stopped at the roundabout and have to find access to the roundabout, you go into the roundabout with your first gear and then change into second gear and just go around the roundabout on second gear.
That's a good one. I have a third question.
Yeah.
How many minor and majors can you get and still pass?
Okay, you can get 0 serious faults, 0 dangerous faults, and you're only allowed 15 minor faults. But I've only ever had one person get 15 minor faults in a drive and pass their test. Because you can get 15 and still pass your test. 16th, you're out of it if it's just minor faults.
Okay, and a serious, if you have one serious, it's
one serious, you're out. One dangerous fault, you're out. Anything more than one serious or one or more serious, one or more dangerous, you're out. If you get a serious and a danger and 3 seriouses, you're just completely gone, and the examiner is probably going to be dying by the time you get back to the test center. You've got him so scared he's not going to take the next person out. You need treatment. So statistically, between 6 and 8, you're on the borderline of failing because you're going to make a serious or dangerous mistake. Any other questions, Yolanda? All right, guys. So there we are. Then if nobody else has any questions, thank you very much for attending this evening. I want to say thank you to everybody who attended. That was absolutely great. Okay, Raquel,
Yes, Chris, I just want to pose this question for our international visitors, for those that are left-hand drivers and those that are right-hand drivers. How are they going to do their lessons?
The thing that I would say is, if you're going to be doing a driving test, you must do it in an instructor's car, or you must have a car that is configured for the environment in which you're going to do the driving test. It doesn't mean you can't go to the driving test. I'm not aware of any person not being able to take their French car to the driving test, but it confuses the examiner. And I think that your faults will just be highlighted as a result of him being uncomfortable with that.
I have another question. Can I ask the instructor questions? I assume the person meant the examiner questions, like what is the speed of the road? So that I answered, you need to know what the speed limit is. So you should not ask something like that, but what are you allowed to ask?
You are not allowed to ask the examiner what the speed limit of the road is. If he answers you, you failed. That's really the rule. So he might have to answer you because you don't know and you're driving much too slowly or much too fast. But the answer to that is you cannot answer it. You can't ask him anything about driving. You can't ask him, which gear should I be in? Am I in the correct gear? Am I driving at the right speed? What is the speed limit? In which traffic light should I follow? You can't do those sort of things. You have to know. You are tested to know that information. So you can't ask that sort of information. What you can ask the examiner ad infinitum is, at this junction, what direction must I turn? But don't get to the stop line and then ask the examiner, which way should I turn? Because that's too late. You can't then just turn. You haven't prepared for the junction. But when you're approaching a junction or he's giving you an instruction, once you've got to that point where you can't really adjust anymore and you're in a lane to go left or straight or right, and you're nearly at a traffic light and it's red, there's no point in asking the examiner. Follow the lane you're in. Put on your left signal, go left if you're in the left lane, or put on your right signal, go right. Rather make a navigation error than try to correct a navigation error. But you can ask the examiner about navigation as much as you like. Even when they do independent driving, you can ask the examiner at every junction, okay, I've now turned left. What is the next turning? Oh, it's 3, and he'll answer you. He's got to answer you the navigation. But you can make navigation errors as long as you don't make driver errors in the process of making navigation errors. So, for instance, getting to a junction and turning left without your signal on. You might have made a navigation error turning left, but you'll fail, not because you made the error on the navigation, you'll fail because you made the error of not putting on your left signal when you turn. Okay?
A further question. I have been told off for putting my window down during a test as I was feeling hot. I don't understand. Can I not control the electronics of the car during the test?
That's a very strange one. The examiner is not supposed to interfere in what you need as far as the window is concerned. It might be the only caveat you'd have on that is if you were negotiating a turn or negotiating a traffic, a mini roundabout or something, and you were fiddling with the windows at that stage, then the examiner might have a reason to talk to you about it because it's distracting you from what you should be doing. So I would say that is something that can come up. But the answer to that is there shouldn't be a reason why you can't put your window down. It's a difficult one to answer because it's difficult to know what the situation was. But I would ask in a case like that, at the end of the test, I would ask the examiner about that. Just be nice, please. It's a good idea if you've got questions to get your instructor to come to the window and listen to what you're asking so that there's another witness to whatever is going on. Okay, is that it? Are we good?
I had actually 2 questions. I think you answered one of them. My other question that I've received from other clients who suffer from anxiety or PTSD or some sort of learning learning disability, dyslexia, and stuff like that, they always ask if the examiner will be made aware.
Okay, so let me take you all through that. So if you have dyslexia, if you've got dyslexia which has been proven by a medical record, you can take that along to your test. A good thing would be, before you go out on test, is to tell us about it so we can let the DVSA know that this person suffers from dyslexia. Here is their dyslexia certificate or document or whatever. That is always good. But if you get to the test and you have dyslexia, and I have often found that students don't know their left and rights, and they get mixed up with left and right. So when I'm instructing, I'll say, okay, go left, or I'll say go right. And you can ask the examiner, the instructor you should ask the instructor to highlight that to the examiner and say, please, when I get there, please highlight this to the examiner. The examiner takes it much better if it comes from the instructor. So if the instructor gets there and says, excuse me, sir, just to tell you, Jolene gets very upset when we're driving, and she often gets a problem with her left and right. She suffers from minor dyslexia. I normally indicate left or right when I give her an instruction. And most examiners will play along with that. They don't really have a problem with that. If it's serious, then I think you need to really make a point of having a certificate and presenting it to the examiner when you get there, when it comes to dyslexia. Other things, people suffer nervousness. The only way you can combat that is know your procedures 150%. Nervousness comes about when you don't know what to do in a circumstance. If you're clear about what you have to do in a circumstance, you aren't nervous. Why should you be nervous? You know what to do. So that is watch the videos. Make sure you understand the videos. Make sure you practice the things you get nervous about. And as you practice the things you get nervous about, you get more confidence and it gets better. The last point there is, if you really suffer from exam nerves, go to your doctor and ask him to give you something for that. They can give you something. Another thing that I found in the past that works, that just takes the edge off that nervousness, is to use ibuprofen. Ibuprofen is a relaxant, and it actually can, not alcohol, but you can use ibuprofen as long as it doesn't knock you out.
There's another question here.
Yes, go for it.
It says, I'm moving houses. Which address should I give in the end of the test if I pass?
The best thing to do is take your pass certificate, mention the change of address to the examiner, but take your pass certificate, take it to the post office and put in your application to the new address, so they send your thing to the new address. The only time the examiners take your provisional license and hold it for just issuing your new license once you pass is when they know that the addresses match. When the addresses don't match, they don't normally take in the provisional. They expect you to think. And another thing I want to tell you about that, which is, if people must never forget, you might have passed your driving test, but if you don't claim your license within 2 years, you have to go and do it again.
So you have to go to the post office, get the form, and then complete the form and send that and your provisional license off to the DVLA.
Yeah, and if sometimes people want to change the photograph on their license as well, their provisional license. And if they want to change the photograph on the provisional license, then they should rather do that form process of claiming their license as well. Okay, Raquel, you had a question. Your hand's up, I see.
No, that was earlier on. Chris, you answered that question. It was about the left and the right-hand drive. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I see Ahmed Abdullah is here. I'm going to ask him if he wants to comment on something. Ahmed.
Yes, I want to ask you some question, but basically you answer some questions. But I want to ask you, I was failed my exam, my drive test, and 2 weeks ago, but getting serious fault by speeding. Road speeding is 40 minutes by hour. I driving 43.
Yeah.
Just I have 6 minor fault,
Yeah.
and 1 serious fault by speeding. What is maximal? I get serious fault by speed.
Okay. The serious fault, the speeding serious fault will normally be if you're in a 40-mile zone and you're doing 43 or 44 or 45, anything over the speed limit, this examiner can fail you for it. If you go over the speed limit, 6 minor fault is good. That means theoretically you should be ready for the test. If you go 43, if you're driving along and you're doing 40, and then go to 43 and immediately come back, the examiner will mark that as a minor transgression. But if you stay at 43 and over, the examiner will take it as a serious fault.
Okay, what's the minimal? I get slow.
Okay, what I would say to you, really way of doing this, a really good way of doing this, is to drive 3 miles per hour below the speed limit. So you drive at 37 miles per hour. That gives you a little bit of space to go over. But don't drive 5 miles per hour below the speed limit, because once you start going too much, like 5 miles per hour below the speed limit for too long, the examiner can fail you for inadequate progress, especially if you've got a nice open road and the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. You've got to be within 3 miles per hour of that speed limit. So you need to be at about 27 miles per hour. So if you're on a 40 road, then drive 37 miles per hour, 37, 38. Don't try and drive at 40 because you easily go over the 40. That way, that's okay. But don't drive at 35 or 30 miles per hour on a 40 road because that's too slow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's just one other thing. Sometimes a road is 30 miles per hour, but it's built up. Then you've got to bring it down. Okay, so you might go through a shopping center where there's lots of traffic and lots of people and so on. Then you're not going to drive 30 miles per hour down that road. That road, although the speed limit is 30 miles per hour, you're going to need to bring it down to about 17 or 20 miles per hour in that area. Okay, all right, that's us then. Good night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you who attended. And please, guys, if we can be of any assistance to you at all, if you've got questions, submit them through your client managers, get them into us. And if we can, we'll give you a call back. Otherwise, we'll point you at a video that covers that question. Because the more you give us these questions, the more we can build up that video repository of ours with your questions, okay? So all these questions in the next couple of weeks, we will address them and produce videos around them for you people as well, so you get things. So make sure you get onto the BDSLonline.com, and please, anything you see there that's not clear, or you've got comments about it, or you don't like it, you've got queries about it, or somebody says to you that's wrong, get back to us and we'll discuss it. Okay? All right. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.